Good morning, everyone. At this time, the court would take up the matter People versus Donald Bivens. This is on ticket 03946518. And the court has this matter scheduled for a formal hearing on the civil infraction violation of the basic speed law. With that, counsel, have you placed your appearance on the record for the court?
Good morning, Your Honor. Dylan Kurt on behalf of the people.
And Mr. Bivens, could you hear me? This is Judge Fickner.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Good morning, sir. And counsel, are we moving forward with the formal hearing here today? Have you and Mr. Bivens had a chance to discuss this matter?
We did, Your Honor. I did make a offer. However, Mr. Bivens at this time has declined that, so we would be forced to proceed with the hearing today.
Okay. And is that accurate, Mr. Bivens? You've declined the offer that Mr. Kurtz extended?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. With that, we're going to move forward with the formal hearing. Understand, because this is a civil infraction, Mr. Kurt, on behalf of the people, have the burden of proof or preponderance of the evidence, which is essentially 51%, different than in a criminal matter, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. With that, Mr. Kurt, since the people carry the burden, the court will hear further from you. Mr. Bivens, before we get started, what I'd ask you to do is if there's anything you'd like to respond to, maybe get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil. I'll hear from you, but I'm going to allow Mr. Kurt to move forward with his case, and then I'll give you an opportunity to cross-examine any witnesses that are called and the like. But maybe the best way to stay organized is to have a piece of paper and a pencil so you can take some notes down so you don't forget anything that you want to bring up when it's your time. Okay?
Okay.
Very good. With that, Mr. Kurt, the court will hear further from you.
Your Honor, people would waive any opening and call Trooper Wincoop.
And Trooper, I ask you to raise your right hand for the court. And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the cause pending is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God?
I do.
Excellent. And go right ahead, Mr. Kurt.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Trooper, would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Trooper Daryl Wynkoop, Wynkoop.
And Trooper, are you employed?
Yes, with the Michigan State Police.
And how long have you been employed with the Michigan State Police?
8 years.
And what position do you currently hold?
I am a trooper on the road.
And were you employed in that position on November 15th of 2021?
Yes, I was.
And on that date, did you receive a dispatch for a vehicle crash?
Yes, I was dispatched to one vehicle crash on the highway.
And what highway was that?
I-75.
Okay. And was that in the county of Saginaw?
Yes, it was.
State of Michigan?
Yep.
Okay. And about what time were you dispatched?
Around 6 o'clock, I believe.
Okay. And at that time, was it, what were the conditions? Was it, was it dark or light? And what was the weather?
It was still dark, and I believe it was snowing at the time.
Okay. Was it a heavy snow or a light snow?
That I don't recall.
Okay. And what happened when you arrived at the one vehicle crash site?
Noticed a white van that was up against the median wall.
Okay. And did you get in contact with the driver?
Yes, I made contact with the driver, who was identified as Donald Bivens.
If he were here today, would you be able to recognize him?
Yes.
Do you see him anywhere on your screen?
Yes, sir. He's wearing a black sweatshirt.
Your Honor, people would ask that identification be placed on record.
Record will so reflect.
Thank you, Your Honor. And so Did you speak with Mr. Bivens at that time?
Spoke to Mr. Bivens briefly. He advised me he was heading to work and that he lost control of his vehicle, which ended up ultimately him crashing the car.
Okay, and did he say why he lost control of his vehicle?
I don't recall, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. And so what does that indicate to you when he states that he lost control of his vehicle?
Due to the road conditions from it being snowing, I believe that he was driving too fast for the road conditions, which made him lose control of his vehicle and crash.
Okay, and just to be clear, the allegation of driving above the basic speed law, we're not talking about the actual speed limit, correct?
Correct.
What's your understanding of the basic speed law?
My understanding of the basic speed law is driving at a reasonable condition that allows you to stop in a clear amount of distance from other vehicles and not losing control of your vehicle during rain, snow, sleet, any type of inclement weather.
And what is it about this set of circumstances that led you to believe that the basic speed law had been violated?
That one, Mr. Bivens advised me that he lost control of his vehicle and he ultimately crashed his vehicle during the road conditions and the inclement weather, while other vehicles were able to drive past us and not crash.
Okay. And was the was that particular stretch of road busier at the time, or was traffic light?
Traffic was busy at the time.
Okay. And no one else had crashed
Correct.
in that area?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, well, and then so after you spoke with the driver and determined all of this, what happened?
He was issued a citation for violation of basic speed law too fast, and he was transported to the hospital for chest pain that he was complaining on scene.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Mr. Bivens, this is your opportunity if you'd like to cross-examine Trooper Wincoop about the testimony he just provided, to pose any questions you have to him. So just to be clear, not your opportunity to testify yourself, but to ask any questions of the trooper, okay?
Okay.
Do you have any questions for Trooper Wincoop?
Yes. Yep. My first question is, he replied that the highway was busy at that moment. The accident happened at 5:45. So he said how do he know that the highway was busy at that point of time?
And Trooper, you may answer.
When I arrived on scene, there was multiple vehicles driving past us. That's all I got.
Yep. And so you said you approached it, you got the call at 6. This accident happened at 5:45. Happened at 5:45. There was no one on the expressway behind me or front of me at that point of time. But my next question is, you said that it was snowing that day, November the 15th. I have the weather report for that day. There was no snow that day. So you said there was snowing that day. Like, is it that you saw visually snow, or that was in the forecast?
That, sir, I remember there being snow visually coming down that day.
November the 15th. I have the weather report
Correct.
for that day. It rained. It rained early that morning, like late that night, and the temperature was kind of cool. There was no snow visually on the ground November the 15th.
Okay.
And I have the forecast for that day. So when you said it was snow, there was no snow on the ground. There was black ice patch under the expressway. Right past Bridgeport exit, the highway was clear and dry until you got under the bridge, right past the Bridgeport exit, because the accident happened 1.5 miles past Bridgeport exit. So you only had 1.5 miles if you left Bridgeport to get on there. So
Is there a question?
Yeah, well, the question was basically, I mean, I was asking, how did you know that you said you saw it? Was it visual that you saw it was snow on the ground, or was it in the forecast for November 15th?
All right. I said I believe it was snowing, and from what your statement just said, that it was possibly raining before and colder weather, which still means that you have to drive at a reasonable conditions on the roadways to make yourself stop at a clear to short distance, and what you did not, which involved you to lose control of your vehicle and to crash into the median, sir.
Yeah, but earlier you said there was snow on the ground. There was no snow.
Okay.
This highway was dry.
Your Honor,
Okay.
Your Honor, I apologize, but I have to object. The witnesses testifying at this time.
Okay. All
The
right.
defendant, I apologize.
Court would sustain the objection. Understand, Mr. Bivens, I'll give you an opportunity to testify, but right now it's your opportunity to cross-examine Trooper Wincoop, okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's the only question I had. I mean, that's it. Was the
That's it
weather?
for,
That was
Trooper?
it.
Okay. And anything further, Mr. Kurt, for Trooper Wincoop?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Trooper, if it had rained prior in the day and was cold, what conditions could that have caused?
That could have caused icy road conditions at that time, and you still need to drive at a reasonable speed and not be able to lose control of your vehicle while driving on the freeway.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
And Trooper, I appreciate your time here this morning. You're free to log off. Thank you. Any additional witnesses, Mr. Kurt?
None, Your Honor.
And do you rest then?
People would rest at this point, Your Honor. Thank you.
And Mr. Bivens, any witnesses you wish to call for purposes of the formal hearing here this morning?
No, ma'am. Just my.
Do you wish
just
to provide
myself.
testimony yourself? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me have you raise your right hand for the court, sir. And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the cause pending is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, information, and beliefs, so help you God?
Help me, God.
All right. And what do you want the court to be aware of, Mr. Bivens?
I'll make it real brief. I'm a hard worker. I work every day, and I travel a lot in this cargo van, a whole lot, and I do the best I can to, obey the law. In previous past, I have had a speeding ticket, before, and I had to work so hard to get my license, up to par, and to be able to afford insurance, keep insurance on, and it's been really, really, really hard. So past that point, on November the 15th, ma'am, and the reason why I brought it to attention about, he said it was snow. Earlier, he said it was snowing on the ground. So the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention now is because November the 15th at 12 midnight, it rained earlier that night. It rained a little. It rained earlier that night. There was no snow on the ground. Snow on the ground whatsoever. There was no ice on the ground. But I understand when you get under a bridge sometimes, it'd be kind of, that's why the sign says, like under the underpasses, it'd be kind of slick under there sometimes. But the road was clear. And I'm traveling on I-75 going to work. And I'm driving normal. Once I got past Bridgeport exit, a mile and a half under underpass, 5:40 in the morning, 5:45 in the morning. So when I got under the underpass, the van, because the cargo van is a back wheel drive, it just turned and it went straight into the wall. So it was no snow on the ground. If there was snow on the ground or any ice on the ground, if the ground is wet, I'm gonna drive slow. But there was no sign of no wetness, no sign of no snow whatsoever. Because I even pulled up the forecast for that day. If you pulled up November the 15th, there was no snow or there was no icy rain. There were just patches of ice under the underpass that I have no aware of it because it was 5:45 in the morning. So I just felt like I didn't even know I had got a ticket that day because I was out of it. I got rushed to the hospital. I got rushed to the hospital. I didn't have time to pull up any other report if anybody else got into an accident, but I remember the police officer pulling up, and I heard him discussing with the other police officer, like, man, it was kind of slick under that bridge. I heard him say that clear as day. He said, it's kind of slick under that bridge, but there was no, I mean, ma'am, I'm just, if you could pull up the forecast for that day, there was no ice, no snow on the expressway. And the only thing is, I just don't want my insurance to go up, paying for a ticket or plea into something that I feel like, you know, it's not right. That's all. I don't even know what to really say, but I'm just saying how I feel right now, and that's it.
Anything further, Mr. Bivens?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Kurt, do you have any questions for Mr. Bivens?
No, Your Honor.
Gentlemen, anything by way of closings for the court?
Your Honor, you've heard testimony today that Trooper Wincoop did find Mr. Bivens having crashed into the median. There is a question of fact as to whether there was snow, whether there was simply black ice, but in either case, the conclusion is the same, that the road conditions were dramatically altered by the inclement weather, whether that would have been black ice or whether that would have been snow. The conditions would have been slippery, at least in some portions of the road. The testimony that you've heard from the trooper and from Mr. Bivens himself would indicate that he was traveling too fast to be able to appropriately react in his car, which was testified to as a van, which have, due to their heavy weight, some difficulty in handling in those kinds of conditions. So through the testimony of both the trooper and Mr. Bivens himself, it appears as though he was going too fast for his own vehicle to be traveling in that weather. And that, Your Honor, is the core of the basic speed law. You know, we have different speed limits for trucks, like big hauling trucks, for a reason, is that the heavier these vehicles are, the more difficult they are to control. And so for that reason, Your Honor, I'd ask that you find Mr. Bivens responsible for the civil infraction of violation of basic speed law too fast.
Thank you. Mr. Bivens, any last closing words for the court?
Yes, ma'am. The officer said that it was snow. That was the first thing he said. Came out of his mouth. And ma'am, they talking about rain now because I brung it up because I got the forecast. And it rained the night before. And I understand now, I understand that, of course, if it's snow on the ground or ice on the ground, you're supposed to drive careful. But ma'am, if the highway is dry, how can you drive careful when the highway is dry? And then at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it's dark. Once you get under underpass, you hit some black ice out of nowhere, you know? So I'm kind of confused with that, but he's saying that I'm supposed to, if I know the weather is bad, I should drive slow. I understand that, but the weather was not bad at that point, and it wasn't bad past that point. So I have the weather report. There was no ice, no snow. So if somebody can help me to understand if the highway is dry, you are supposed to drive carefully when the highway is dry. That's all I have to say, ma'am.
Thank you. Gentlemen, the court has heard from Trooper Wincoop as well as from Mr. Donald Bivens here today. As they indicated, this is the formal hearing that was scheduled on the violation of the basic speed law. The allegation is that Mr. Bivens was going too fast for the conditions. And this is a civil infraction. With a civil infraction, the maximum penalties associated with a civil infraction are fines only, no threat of jail time as it's a civil infraction. Further, and the court indicated at the outset that the burden of proof is with the prosecution to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, which is 51% or more, that Mr. Bivens is responsible for driving the vehicle in such a fashion as to violate the basic speed law. And application of that law here today is not an allegation that Mr. Bivens exceeded the posted speed limit, for example, but that the allegation is that he operated the vehicle in such a manner, given the conditions, as to operate too fast. Now, based on the testimony the court has heard, both Trooper Wincoop and Mr. Bivens have addressed weather. There are somewhat conflicting testimony on what was the actual weather when the time that the traffic accident occurred. Trooper Wincoop did not personally observe the accident occur, but came to the scene after the fact between 6 and 6:15, I believe is what the testimony was, in the morning on November 15th. Mr. Bivens indicated that the accident occurred approximately 5:45 a.m. Mr. Bivens has indicated that the pavement was dry and it was dark outside, and it was not snowing at that time of the actual accident. Whether it started snowing later is a question of fact. The issue for the court to determine is, based on the testimony that's been provided today, has the prosecution proved by a preponderance of the evidence that at the time the accident occurred, did Mr. Bivens operate the vehicle in such a fashion as to violate the basic speed law, specifically going too fast for the conditions? And at this time, the court does not find, we can make certain conclusions about what happened after the fact, but absent an eyewitness to the actual accident, the conclusions that are being the court asked to draw here, the court does not find that those conclusions are supported by a preponderance of the evidence, and the court would enter a dismissal accordingly.